So, good evening, everyone. Thank you for coming this session. This is our session 2. The title of this session is Regional Collaboration in Europe and Asia. In previous session, this conference addressed the history. Now we are going to address contemporary issues. Okay, so the issues we will address are very wide-ranging, from labor migration, cross-border cooperation, energies, or connectivity for building the infrastructure, and climate change and energy security, and so on. So, my name is Yoichiro Usui, Niigata University of International Information Studies. I'm working on EU studies. So I'm looking forward I was looking forward to this session because comparison between Europe and Asia is quite important, even for European studies, EU studies. And I think the one common theme in this session is, I think, comparative governance studies between Europe and Asia. Okay, so let me first explain all presenters. Okay, so let me share the screen. Okay, so first, we have 5 excellent distinguished speakers. The first speaker is Professor Shuto Motoko from Japan, and her presentation is about ASEAN governance of labor migration. The second presenter is Soavapa Ngampramuan from Thailand. Her presentation is about comparative sub-regional development between Asia and Europe. And third presenter will be Kanksha Singh. Her presentation is about demand of regional cooperation, especially the cooperation between France and Germany in terms of how to securing the energy. And the fourth presenter will be Jun Sin. The theme is about the Belt and Road Initiative and Europe. Quite interesting for me. And last but not least, Mr. Peter Joy Hudson will address the climate policies in EU. Okay, so let me suggest about the time management. This session is 19-minute session, so and 5 presenters, so quite tight. Okay, so let me suggest that for any presentation must be the 14 minutes. Okay, and I hopefully will be able to get less than 20 minutes question and answer time. Okay, so the first presenter will be the Professor Shuto Motoko Shuto. Presentation theme is about ASEAN. So over to you, Professor. So now floor is yours.
Oh, thank you very much, Professor Usui. And let's see, let me try to share the document.
Yes, please. Okay, please. Fast harder. Okay. Yeah.
This.
No.
No.
Not yet. Not yet.
Not yet.
Not yet.
Can you see?
Okay, nice.
Okay. Okay.
Just a second.
Can you see?
But not yet. Not yet. But okay now.
Yes. Yes. Okay,
perfect.
now.
Perfect.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Very close.
Thank you. Then let's see. I think I do gamen kirikai first. Okay. Thank you very much. It's a very nice meeting you, and I try to finish within 14 minutes. My name is Motoko Shuto, and my talk today is on the ASEAN's regional governance of labor migration, focusing on emerging institutionalization of tripartite plus civil society organizations forum. Plus, I like to briefly mention its policy consequences in my summary. here. In my outline, I have 3 points today in my presentation. The first point is that there's a new development in norm setting and norm sharing processes on protection and promotion of migrant workers, and at the regional level since the late 2000. And there are multi-stakeholders on new multi-layered schemes of policy discussion in that context. Plus, there's a new function of ASEAN that is as a facilitator or as a provider of a platform of regional governance, and in collaboration with the UN agencies such as ILO. And of course, there are challenges within, but these 3 points I like to talk in my presentation today. But first, let me briefly review the key points and some historical background, because when we look back the past decades, there are a couple of major turning points, I think. First, let me briefly clarify the key points. That is, there's an increasing mobility of people for work abroad, at the global level and at the Asia-Pacific level as well, and in particular ASEAN level as well, in accordance with the market convergence. And at the global level, of course, labor migration can be an economic boost or social development, but no framework of management exists in Asia, in East Asia. So far, the labor mobility is going on based on primarily demand and supply context only. But except for relatively new G2G, government bilateral agreements have been made, including Japan, between Japan and Asian countries. But I think there's no mechanism to maximize the benefits and minimize the risks of labor migration. So from now on, I think, in Asia, we have to somehow construct a new mechanism to maximize the benefits, plus minimize the risks. These are the key points. And then when we look back the past decades history, since the 1970s, mid-1970s, ASEAN labor ministers held their ministerial meetings once every 2 years since 1975. But 1970s and 80s, there was no agenda of labor migration at that time, because migration issues was strictly restricted as a domestic affairs, not as an internal affairs. So they did not discuss any agenda on labor migration at that time. But the turning point, I think, came at the early 1990s, because for one thing, December 1990, UN Convention was adopted on the protection of the rights of migrant workers and the member of their families, of which Philippines and Indonesia only have signed and ratified among the ASEAN countries, though. And in June 1993, the very important UN Convention, UN conference was held on human rights in Vienna. But in case of the Asia Pacific, what is by far more important and major turning point was, I think, was a preparatory meeting of the NGOs in Asia Pacific and the governmental meeting in Asia Pacific. Both were held at the end of March. I think they were very important turning points in this context. And let's see. And then in the year 2000, the ASEAN, after the ASEAN became a fully regional organizations, all the Indochina countries all joined in ASEAN. So ASEAN became a really regional organization. And then ASEAN declared ASEAN Concord 2 and declared to become an ASEAN community by the year 2020. And this ASEAN community consists of 3 pillars: economic, political, security community, ASEAN economic community, and ASEAN social cultural community. And they make an action program in the following year, Vientiane Action Program, for the coming 5 years. And this Vientiane Action Program, there are new normative values. Remarkably new normative values were all mentioned in this Vientiane Action Program, such as the goal of ASEAN community was to promote peace, stability, democracy, and prosperity, and to promote human rights this is also mentioned, and strengthen the rule of law, good governance, and the ASEAN community should increase the participation of non-governmental organizations. They were all mentioned explicitly in this action program. And after this action program, a new dynamism of institutionalization started, I think. First, based on this Vientiane Action Program, the leaders, summit meetings asked the labor ministers to start an elaboration of an ASEAN instrument on the protection and promotion of the rights of migrant workers. Then, here I made a red arrow, but after this, actually, as I later see at slide number 8, here immediately, actually, civil society organization took the initiative to compile all the policy agendas and submit it to the ASEAN summit meetings. Here, later, this red arrow, the process I later briefly mentioned again. And as a consequence, for the first time in 2007, January, ASEAN summit meetings adopted ASEAN Declaration on the protection and promotion of the rights of migrant workers. In short, it is called the Cebu Declaration. This is the very first regional arrangement, though it was declaration on labor migration. And then in the year 2010s, ASEAN became a further tried to make further steps to make an ASEAN community, and they make a blueprints, ASEAN, and there are 3 blueprints, and one of the 3 was the ASEAN social cultural blueprints, and they, in the category C, they wrote the social justice and rights of protection and promotion of the rights of migrant workers. This is one of the categories of these blueprints. And in parallel with this, ASEAN set up other institutions such and adopted ASEAN Human Rights Declaration in the year 2012. And here also, migrant workers' rights are integral and indivisible part of human rights and the fundamental freedom. This is also mentioned in this declaration. And since the year 2016, they made the second term of the blueprints. There is a blueprint 2025. And here, again, in the three blueprints, but all of them mention the issue, the different aspect of the labor migration. ASEAN political security APSC blueprint specifically focused on human trafficking issues. And ASEAN economic AC blueprint focuses on skilled labor, business visas, and all their qualification procedures. And ASEAN's ASCC social cultural community blueprints focuses on all the social protection issues of all migrant workers. And in accordance with this process, this making process of the norms, corporation also, companies, corporation also took it seriously to make their better evaluation by paying attention to the labor migrant workers' rights. And just in convergence of market activities, ASEAN guidelines for CSR, corporate social responsibility, was also adopted. And in this way, 2017, ASEAN consensus on the protection and promotion of the rights of migrant workers was adopted. My talk is what kind of dynamism from the 2007 to 2017. This I like to this is a statistical data, just on a quick look at the views, and you see later. This is just an annual base, and in terms of the population stock, this is by far much more than this. Say in Thailand, it is said that almost 2 million or more. Less than 3 million people, migrant workers, are based in Thailand. Mostly they come from Myanmar or Cambodia. But this is just a brief. And then you see some countries primarily go to work within the region, Cambodia, Laos, they go to Thailand. So Thailand is one of the major hub of labor receiving countries. This is an overview. Then the second point is, what kind of mechanism has been emerging or has emerged? And it has emerged since 2007, and then after that, the regular meeting has been set up. Then this kind of new mechanism has been emerging. This is the second point. You see, the proposal of norms, how to protect the migrant workers' right, has been proposed from various stakeholders, multi-stakeholders, and they get together in the regional meetings and they try to share the information and share the norms. And then the next, at the regional level, governmental officials make regular discussions and they make principles and policies, and then they make action plans. And then each governmental officials, after they adopted the action plan, they go back to individual government and they try to transform these action plans into specific policies or laws, or revising their existing laws in their own countries. And then after this, all the implementation process has been monitored by the multi-stakeholders in their countries. And they make a review and they collect information, they make feedback. And then in the next meeting, they get together and exchange information. This kind of feedback and proposals and feedback, including trade unions and civil society organizations and the government officials and ILOs, they're all joined in this process. And this kind of new mechanism has been emerging since the 2010s. This is a mechanism and new patterns. And yes, and this is not so at a regional level only, but it is somehow supported. It is a national level mechanism, all included, and this linkage has been going on. And then this is a civil society groups. After Vientiane Action Program was adopted, as I said, actually ASEAN Secretary General On Ken-hon, who is a Singaporean, asked how to launch a new discussion platform. And they asked one of the leading labor activists, who is a Singaporean, to somehow make up platforms and groups, somehow group or networks of the CSOs or trade unions. And that Singaporean activist, who is Sinapan Samidurai, Mr. Sinapan Samidurai, he was quite active, and he himself was deeply involved with some of the activities. So he managed, he made some teams, and these are the teams. And the last three organizations, actually, they were the trade unions, international trade unions, and their Asia Pacific branch offices. They also joined. And in 2006, the Task Force for ASEAN Migrant Workers was established. And actually, this force made a kind of discussion in both at the national level and they make a regional level, and they submit the proposals, which was reflected in the Cebu Declaration in 2007. And then here, based on such active discussion, and the Cebu Declaration was adopted. And the third point is then, ASEAN set up a committee on migrant workers in 2007 based on the Cebu Declaration. And then they discussed how to somehow, carry out the tasks of the committees. And then senior labor officials meetings agreed to set up a special discussion forum. That was ASEAN Forum on Migrant Laborers. And here, this ASEAN Forum on Migrant Labor consists of the representative from each member government officials and employers organization from 10 countries, plus a regional association of the employers organization, ASEAN Confederation of Employers, and the trade unions from 10 countries, plus regional trade unions, and CSOs from 10 countries, plus regional CSOs, and then ILO, IMO, and UN Women, and ASEAN Secretariat also joined. So this is a forum which has, of course, horizontal networking, but at the national ASEAN level and at the individual national level, they have a vertical linkages. And this is a kind of mechanism, sketch of their mechanism. See. here. The ASEAN AFL meeting is here, and then CSOs, they join, and the task force of ASEAN migrant workers, in a sense, a kind of the leader, a kind of gatekeeper of the CSOs, and government officials also join here. And ILO takes a very important part, and ASEAN Confederation employers members also join, and the trade unions join, and they have a regular meeting here. But the regular meeting is not only one time only, but until they get together, they have a kind of a preparatory national meetings in various forms. National tripartite preparatory meeting, which has been held since 2012. This has been held at the national level. And tripartite means so government officials and labor unions representatives and employers all get together at the national level. And ASEAN Confederation of Employers, they have a meeting at their representatives, among their representatives at national level and then regional level. And ASEAN Trade Union Council, they have their member trade unions in some in the ASEAN countries press. They have a branch office in East Timor also. Except for Brunei, they have regional trade unions and CSOs meetings and government officials. So they have, before they get together in the AFML meeting, they have a national preparatory and tripartite meetings for one thing. And in addition to that, CSO meetings, they have regional meetings immediately before this. And ASEAN Confederation of Employers also, they have a meeting before and after AFM meeting, they have a meeting again to set up priorities for the next year's action program. So in this way, they have before and after, they have at the national level tripartite meeting they have. And this is trade union councils, and this is ATUC has been largely so inactive, but since the past 2 to 3 years, they have been quite active. And these days, I see, please have a look at this, joint statement of ATUC and ASEAN Confederation of Employers on the protection and promotion of migrant workers' rights. They make a joint statement. So more and more a kind of collaboration between the major stakeholders has been already set up. And this is a chronological list that I made. And every year they have a AFML meeting, and chair country is the host country of ASEAN, which is done on a rotational basis every year. And so this year, AFL meeting was held in Hanoi last year. And largely this year, the topic was on the COVID-19, the impacts of COVID-19 on the migrant workers. And here you see, if I make some categories of their policy proposals, largely these days, in the past several years, they focus more and more on their policy proposals, on the decent work, how to protect the social security, occupational safety and health, and decent works. And this year, among 12 policy proposals, 8 proposals, all related to the COVID-19 and health access, like this. And ASEAN consensus, as I said, just in parallel with this policy proposals meeting of AFML, ASEAN consensus at the governmental level, they make a consensus and they set up new regulations. So if you compare with the civil consensus, you see obligations of sending states and the obligation of receiving states and the commitment of ASEAN. You see, by far, there are more specific obligations have been agreed in the ASEAN consensus. Yes, so I think I have to somehow sum up my talk. And ASEAN consensus, so this is the governmental level consensus. And based on this, ASEAN has made an action plan to implement the ASEAN consensus. Okay, so, and then what are the consequences? You see, there are, how can I say, there are big sharp contrast. For one thing, ILO triangle in the Indo-China areas, there are certainly some remarkable development. As you see, migrant workers resource centers have been set up already in the, I think now the 28 centers have been set up and to provide informations, and the new applications has been made available for the money remittances for migrant workers. But I think national level, Indonesia has made a remarkable progress in terms of enactment and policies, which I'm afraid I cannot explain here. Maybe another time I think I try to write. But Vietnam, just in contrast, a sharp contrast, I cannot see any visible development. So there's a very wide spectrum of the remarkable development and no visible development, I think. But Singapore also.
Please, Professor, please.
Okay, Singapore. I try to finish. Okay, sorry.
Yes, please. Thank you.
Okay, summary. So you see, then in the past 10 years or more, say that 10 years, yes, about 10 years, there's been a remarkable progress, and it was a leadership from CSOs which make a crucial role, and the participation of the multi-stakeholders, that is also remarkable. And ILO programs as a catalyst, and ASEAN works as a facilitator. But the challenges, there are many challenges, and by far the governance gap still remains. So lack of standardization is a major problem of this ASEAN process. I think I should stop here. Well, thank you very much for your attention. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Professor Shuto, Motoko Sensei. Thank you very much. So quite, she gave us the quite interesting practice of ASEAN about labor migration project norms. Okay. So now could you stop your share?
Okay. Okay,
Yes.
I think.
Yes, thank you very much. So I just forgot the important thing to ask all listeners. So could you give us any comment and questions anytime by using Q&A? Okay. So although there may be no enough time to get back to all comment or our questions, but of course, every comment and questions will be very much important academic resources to all presenters. So could you give us any comment and questions anytime by using Q&A? Okay, so next presenter is Soavapa Ngampramuan from Thailand. Okay, so her presentation is about the comparative sub-regional development between European strategy for Danube region and Greater Mekong Sub-region. So in other words, macro-regional cooperation or cross-border cooperation. Quite interesting. So over to you, Associate Professor Ngampramuan. So our floor is now yours, please.
Hello to everyone from Thailand. My name is Soavapa Ngampramuan. I'm going to talk about the comparative sub-regionalism between Danube region and the Mekong sub-regional cooperation. Okay, let I share the screen. Okay. Yes, and be slide on, right?
Yes, perfect, please.
Yes, okay. Okay, we are going to talk about the investigation of sub-regional dynamic of the EU strategy of the Danube region and the Greater Mekong Sub-region by using the sub-regional framework that reviewed from the European case and the Asian case to be the framework of this sub-regionalism. And I like to compare these two institutes by the framework of this sub-regionalism. First of all, I would like to explain why I choose EUSDR and the GMS. Okay, these two international river basins is very important from the world. So there are the try to choose to compare these two international rivers to get the benefit from the sub-regional cooperation and the construct of sub-regional institutes of the river organization. So there are the idea of this cooperation from the meeting from ASEAN. In 2011, there is the initiative of the cooperation between the Greater Mekong Sub-region and the Danube region on the 10th of ASEAN meeting in Hungary. So this initiative aims to enhance cooperation between the country of these two regions on development and better utilization of water resources, flood control, flood risk mapping, water quality, and also river basin management. So this is a very good idea to learn about these two cooperation by comparative. So first of all, I would like to introduce of geographical identification of these two regions. As you can see, the Danube River is the longest river in the world and link riparian state from the west to the east of Europe. There have been 14 countries to share this river. For example, I have to go back, right? For example, Germany, Austria, Slovakia, Hungary, Croatia, Serbia, and also to the Danube of basin of Danube, like Czech Republic, Slovakia, Macedonia, if you can see from the screen. And for the country that draw, you can see the former in Cold War, you can see the former Russian country and also the European country. So for the Mekong River, there are 6 countries to join. The Mekong also international river, only international river in Asia that links 6 countries together. You can see the country like China is part Yunnan province and Guangxi region, Cambodia, Laos, Myanmar, Thailand, and Vietnam. So I'm going to talk about the concept of sub-regional cooperation. For this research, I adopt the concept of sub-regional cooperation to the perspective of international political economy presented by Cook and Kerm, who is the one who present the open regionalism by focus related to the end of Cold War with the globalization and also domestic political issue. Political and economic issue. And the sub-regional cooperation in Asia and Europe is very important in this era right now with the multidimensional and open character that summarize with these 5 characteristics. For this characteristic of the sub-regional dynamic, first of all, I like to talk about the concept of the proximity of the area. The sub-regional cooperation focus on small geographical tight and cross-border river between countries who join, and also the symbolize the close relationship among the people to the cross-border cooperation. The second one is connect the economic development and infrastructure development through the sub-region area, and also focus on investment and solve or non-security issue, just like terrorism, organized crime, drug or armed proliferation, or human trafficking. That is very important, or illegal migration that Professor Shuto talked a little bit in ASEAN, and also minority issue. And also sub-regionalism is a tool of foreign policy of the government and also domestic economic policy preferential that would like to mobilize the economic through the market, a global market. And the other one, since the beginning, there are the external actors concerned with sub-regional cooperation, especially for the financial support and funding. Is also sub-regional also is a subset of a regional cooperation. For example, for the EU and also the Danube, and geographical political space hegemonic state, just like the US, Japan, and also China. And lastly, sub-regional cooperation is not the type of institutional formal organization. Is being of cross-border cooperation with the government is a primary concern and also involved with interstate and sub-state level, including business and civil society. So next one, I'm going to talk about each region between the EUSDR and the GMS. As you can see, the Danube EU's strategy of the Danube region was adopted in 2012 by European Council under the Austrian and Hungary and Baden-Württemberg provincial government support. It related to the cross-border cooperation of the 14 countries in order to force socio-economic and territorial development to the improved Danube basin. And for the goal and the objective of the EUSDR is based on 4 pillars for connecting the Danube region, for protecting the environment of the Danube region, building prosperity and strengthening institutional capacity and cooperation. It divides into 11 priority areas that aim to develop toward navigable river transport corridor as a waterway of the Danube, especially connecting the shipping and promoting international trade and building dams for shipping in order to foster commerce, tourism, infrastructure within the southern and the Eastern Europe. And for the national interest, EUSDR cooperates by the strong national interest arrangement policy. If you can see from the Austria as a case study that the Austrian government was the first state who suggests cross-border cooperation and transnational coordination in the Danube region to EU since 2009 in the Council meeting in order to enhance economic well-being and fulfill development gap between the rich states like the Austria and the Germany and the former communist state with the cross-border activities, including reduced labor migration and support foreign direct investment and the small medium enterprise in the poorer area. For the external domestic actor, you can see EU Commissioner serve the facilitation and coordinator the project by highlighting the provide financial support to the member at the top-down process. And the EU also played the active role to offer the EU platform to engage with the non-member at the dynamic of true for Europeanization. It might be transformation management and facilitating device for the member state in order to offer the means of politics and social in the EU system. For the loose institutional form of the sub-regional cooperation, for the EUSDR based on 3 node rules of the macro region mechanism of the Danube region. For the EU, then 3 nodes rules mean to no new funding, no new regulation, no new institution. It means this EUSDR does not aim for economic integration as the union, but focus on increasing trade and the facilitation of local and provincial level, including infrastructure development through the sub-regional level. And the most critical characteristic of the EUSDR involved with the multi-level governance of the institute. For example, national governments such as a foreign ministry or other ministry that involved with the priority area or other state body based like a local and provincial support. And also the goal of the EUSDR is to make the cooperation between local government with the business and civil society or civil organization through the transparency, equal and effective. This is the all 3 sub-regional characteristics of the EUSDR. So the next one, let's move to the Greater Mekong Sub-region before I'm going to compare these 2 regions. For the Greater Mekong Sub-region, you can see the Mekong River is the longest international river in Asia, and also for the Greater Mekong Sub-region cooperation was initiated by the Asia Development Bank by 1992, and the program to support economic cooperation of the region by introducing a technical assistance program designed to promote and facilitate economic cooperation among the member countries who sharing the Mekong basin. For the cross-border cooperation and economic development, you can see from strategic framework from 2000 to 2020. The cross-border cooperation and economic development is the aim of the GMS to enhance the linkage of transportation and regulation that will facilitate the investment, moving goods and raw material. Therefore, the road construction and the accelerate regulation and moving goods across the border is primary goal of the GMS. And on the 1998, the Economic Corridor Project was initiated to adopt the Economic Corridor Project to develop the improve of investment, energy, transportation, and telecommunication of the sub-region. The GMS believes transportation development will help reduce poverty in the area and bring economic prosperity to the area that the roads access. So the success of the cooperation of this Greater Mekong Sub-region is the Cross-Border Transportation Agreement, or CBTA. CBTA is the most successful cooperation with the new age cooperation of the Greater Mekong, who was employed in August 2018. It is some kind of one-stop service that allows 200 trucks. For example, in this first is called first harvest period. First 200 trucks run through 6 countries without stop for the custom or cross-border routes between these 2 borders. So this is a very more successful of the Greater Mekong Sub-regional cooperation in this time. And also Thailand is the most affected by the GMS according to Thailand domestic policy, because the Thai government were interested in Indo-China sub-regional cooperation, political and economic cooperation. Thailand also put the program under the framework of the GMS in the national plan for promote Eastern Economic Corridor for attract foreign direct investment in the high-level industry right now. So for the Eastern Economic Corridor, now is very popular for direct investment in the Greater Mekong Sub-region, especially for China right now. For the external dominant actor, as you can see, Asia Development Bank is the institute who initiate the GMS and also is a main donor of the GMS in the establishment in difference of Japan. So ADB acts as the secretariat and coordinator for the GMS project, like supporting large infrastructure projects like hydroelectric dams, power generate facilities, power transmission line, telecommunication system, and railway. It's very important for developing countries like in Southeast Asia that we need financial donor to support our facilitating. So in 2016, China also played a big role in the Greater Mekong Sub-region after China launched the Belt and Road Initiative in 2003. So 2006, China initiated LANCANG-MEKONG cooperation to the Greater Mekong Sub-region to promote cross-border cooperation and also economic cooperation, culture and social cooperation between people to the people along the Mekong region, and also infrastructure building. The idea of the LANCANG-MEKONG cooperation is that China put the money in the AIIB, Asia Infrastructure and Investment Bank, to loan to the country in the GMS for building infrastructure, for example, railway, transportation, and also build the seaport of the member country. So the country in the member country in the Greater Mekong Sub-region was also loaned by China since that time, except Thailand, because Thailand doesn't want to loan the money from China, but Thailand tried to compromise by ask the technical and support from the China. Now Thailand signed the regulation with China already since the beginning of this year for the high-speed railway. So China will come to Thailand to build a railway track to link Thailand to the northern part, to the southern part of China in Yunnan province. And now the railway track in the Lao, in Lao country finished already from the south of China to the north of Lao in Luang Prabang.
Last 2 minutes, please.
Yes. So for the comparative between, there are the big, it also the challenges between EUSDR and also the GMS. For the EUSDR, you can see the big economic differences between the richest country like Austria and Germany, and also the poorest region like in the Eastern Europe. And there are different between the industrial and agricultural based states that cause a lot of labor migration and also migrant flow from Europe, from the Eastern Europe through the Italy through the Austria and Germany. So also the political system, because there are no decision-making power of some country in the EUSDR, and also some states still face big corruption issue like corruption. For the EUSDR, there are the 6 different political in the political system of 6 country member, and all member countries still poor. So there are lack of financial and also effective working group. And also for the political system of the GMS still top-down policy. So only central government still play the role for the institutes. So the GMS want to learn from the EUSDR that also success by the support of the richest country like Germany and also the Austria. So the Greater Mekong Sub-region want to learn how to bring the civil society to link and also attach the civil society. It is a very interesting between these 2 regions. Thank you very much.
So thank you very much. So Soavapa-san, thank you very much. Interesting 2 cases from Europe and Southeast Asia. Thank you very much. So could you stop the share your file, please?
Yes. Okay. Stop share.
Yes, please.
Yes.
So thank you very much. So now we've got 2 great interesting cases in terms of considering the comparative governance between Europe and Asia. Thank you. So third presenter is Akanksha Shin, Dr. Akanksha Shin. She will present international relations, demand of regional cooperation in New World Order, the case study of France and Germany in terms of securing our energy. So Akanksha-san, over to you. So please, now floor is yours.
Thank you, Usui Sensei. A very good evening to all of you. So now let me begin my presentation. Okay, yeah. Can you view it? Just a second. Hello? Hello?
Yes, I can.
Can you view my presentation?
Yeah. Yes.
Just a second.
Yes. Yes.
Okay. I'll just yeah.
Could you slideshow, please?
So my today's topic of presentation is demand of regional cooperation in New World Order, case study of Germany towards EU formation, focusing on the energy security. So I would begin the introduction of the presentation with the introduction about a brief definition of the regional cooperation and integration provided by the Asian Development Bank, that it is a way through which countries can achieve national interest in cooperation with each other, since well-integrated markets are more secure against economic shocks and tend to avail more investment at higher risk and high return assets, since there is opportunity to diversify the share and the risk. With deeper connectivity and balances in the resource distribution, integration process stimulates economic growth. Therefore, in its first section, this paper examines how countries, after an era of much hate and suspicion towards each other during World War, reconciled wars, and in later section discuss the role of energy in the present order to foster the integration process. So briefly about the Franco-German reconciliation. This section discusses about Franco-German reconciliation, that how it all started and role of energy in fostering the relationships. So this paper view Franco-German reconciliation as a paradigm for the present day leaderships to come together in cooperation to tackle the global problems such as climate change, terrorism, nuclear threat, and poverty. During World War II, France on one hand was an allied power, on the other hand, Germany was an Axis power. So when the World War ended, there was a problem of reconstruction in front of all economies to develop their industries. At that time, coal and steel sector emerged as a key sector whose growth was necessary for the industrial development of all economies. So Ruhr Basin was situated at the border of France and Germany. It was one of the world's largest coal producing area. It was a major mining field which supported the heavy industries and was considered as a Germany's armory. So it was a region which remained in the conflict between both countries for the possession of the valuable resource of that time. So in order to set up a common foundation for economic development of the European states, there came the Schuman Declaration in 1950. It proposed that Franco-German production of coal and steel as a whole would be placed under a common high authority within the framework of an organization open to the participation of other countries of Europe. So Schuman viewed that in order to make war not merely unthinkable but materially impossible between France and Germany, it was essential to set up a production unit in consensus with both states with the basic elements of the industrial production on the same term. Therefore, France and Germany agreed to pool their coal and steel resources under the cooperative framework, resulting in the formation of European and Coal Steel Community, which was set up which intend to set up a single European market for community development of coal and steel, where raw material consumers would be provided free access to the production sources. Apart from the energy, the importance of the political will. So it was that personal invitation when French President de Gaulle invited his German counterpart to his family home in East France instead of the official Élysée Palace, making German consular only president to visit the French president's family home. So this personal entente between both leaders led to the signing of Élysée Treaty in 1963 to establish a new level of cooperation between France and Germany. The regional cooperation and integration need of an hour. This section discusses that why regional cooperation is important in present time. So EU has set up an example of economic and political integration as a benchmark to all the countries in the world, starting from the Schuman Declaration in 1950. There has been a sustained political efforts and the institutional framework, regulatory institutional frameworks, which has resulted in such a cooperation and such a integrated region such as ECSC, European Economic Community, European Atomic Community, Single European Act, and the Maastricht Treaty, and others. Europe has benefited from its policies on the European energy market liberalization and integration. And presently, European energy sector of gas and electricity is the largest interconnected power system, which connects more than 25 countries of the continental Europe. However, if we take the case of Asia, there are no leadership efforts in this direction from states to resolve the suspicion and the skepticism towards each other. For example, especially in East Asia, the China and Japan, and in India, in South Asia, India and Pakistan. So without the conciliation of these major countries in their sub-regions, the process of growth is kind of hold up. So therefore, this article view energy, which is an unescapable necessity and commodity of the globalized world, as an element which can drive energies to come together for the mutual cooperation. So figure 1 shows the step-by-step relationship from reconciliation to the sustainable growth. It shows that reconciliation leads to increase in cooperation among states. This cooperation enhances the multinational infrastructure development, which enhances connectivity. The unhindered connectivity nurtures the flow of energy from energy surplus states to the energy deficient states, fostering energy security. And energy security directly affects the economy of states, therefore increasing the prospects of regional cooperation integration, thereby paving the road for the sustainable growth of the region as a whole. So, like how the energy can play a role in boosting regional cooperation. So firstly, the demand of the energy. So recently in the McKinsey Global Institute in its report predicted that by 2040, Asia would account 50% of the world's total GDP and 40% of world's energy consumption. Therefore, would intensify the competition for energy resources in the region. And according to an Asian Development Banks in its one of its reports predicted that by 2030, none of the country would be self-sufficient in its energy resources and would not be able to fulfill its energy needs on its own. Therefore, I have mentioned a quote from the American legal expert John Ashcroft that if necessity is the mother of invention, it is also the father of cooperation. Therefore, energy is this necessity of present world order where cooperation is well desired. Energy connectivity via multinational cooperation opens the door of energy diversification. Cross-energy trade and greater interdependence within the region is an effective solution to deal with the energy imbalance. Greater interdependence would reduce vulnerability to energy price volatility, disruption caused by the undiversified sources of energy imports. So figure 2 shows the SWOT analysis. So in this section, I have used the SWOT framework to compile the possible strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats for the interstate and the interregional cooperation. So strength and weakness are considered as internal factor, which are from the region or from the state from within. And these are the strengths are over the others and disadvantages related to the others. And the opportunities and threats are considered as the external factors which states attract and invite them to connect with each other. So strategic location, connectivity, energy reserves have been identified as the internal strengths which can attract countries towards each other to connect. And the weaknesses such as lack of the investment, government policies, complicated bureaucratic processes which may hinder the economic growth, the fragmented energy networks which are less efficient in terms of the cost and resource use, hereby providing the costly energy, are some of the internal weaknesses. And the opportunities and the threats. So when countries collaborate, there are benefit of technology advancement, investment empowering, which provide impetus to the economic growth, hereby fostering economic integration. And in between of all the growth, infrastructure development and investment, when all the infrastructure development, most of the time countries tend to take the environmental and the ecological concerns for granted, which none of the countries on the planet Earth can afford to take these concerns for granted. And the border conflicts and the threat of terrorist activities can also hold up the project initiated for years. Also, because of the scarcity, there can be accelerated interstate competition in the region. So these are some of the factors which have been identified when taking into the consideration the multilateral cooperation. Therefore, in order to secure energy security, a role of regional cooperation will be imperative for the sustainable growth. In the post-World War time, it was coal and steel which acted as a chief material force for progressive and pragmatic cooperation among the European countries. Now it can be power grid and multinational pipelines which can inspire a state to connect for the sustainable growth for the better future. Particularly in Asia, the biggest challenge for Asia to integrate and to think about integration like European Union. Other challenges are the vastness, extreme diversity, and huge economic imbalances. Therefore, the Asian countries can learn from their Asian counterparts such as ASEAN, and what they have learned from the European experience, that how the regional cooperation can be leveraged to facilitate connectivity and economic growth. So in this section, I have mentioned I have just given a briefly an example of the two mega power projects of ASEAN. So ASEAN presently has emerged as the most successful integrated region of which is the most preferred investment destination and is predicted to be the fourth largest economy in the world by 2030. ASEAN Economic Community aims to enhance the energy security, connectivity, and sustainability through multilateral power trade, and also provide the political, regulatory, and the policy framework to establish regional energy market. So ASEAN Power Grid and Trans-ASEAN Gas Pipeline are the two most suitable examples of the multilateral cooperation in energy sector from the region. So ASEAN Power Grid. So the ASEAN Power Grid began as a bilateral power connection. Today interconnects the power systems of the Singapore, Thailand, Malaysia, Indonesia, Laos, Cambodia, Myanmar, Vietnam, Philippines, and Brunei. It primarily aims to reduce the energy cost, mitigate supply and power shocks. It has not only provided the benefit of the regional connectivity and economic integration, but it has also strengthened the ASEAN influence in the global economy. So Trans-ASEAN Gas Pipeline is another important infrastructure project which fosters ASEAN energy cooperation. It connects the gas fields from the diverse regions such as Andaman Sea, China Sea, Gulf of Thailand to ensure the uninterrupted gas supply. And as of 2020, it connects it connects approximately 6 countries with a total length of the 3,600 kilometer and regasification terminals. Therefore, sub-regional energy trade can help meet energy demand while maximizing the scarce natural resources, connecting the deficient region to the sufficient one. The usage of different peak times for different state in an inter-regional power grid can reduce the need to build a new power generation plant altogether in countries, and such sub-regional resource endowment differences and their allocations can facilitate the sustainable development goals. So in the conclusion, this article views reconciliation as a component for developing the crucial political will for cooperation. The cornerstone of EU integration was the Franco-German reconciliation and the sustained political efforts of leaders from both countries, which is a lesson present leaderships can learn from their predecessors. There is a huge scope of regional cooperation in Asia for energy deficient and energy sufficient region to enhance their energy security, and also to promote the energy security through multilateral power connection requires the strengthened institutional framework. Therefore, to establish the successful regional integration in Asia, cooperation among the political leaderships and the formation of channelized institutions across the continent is well desired. Also in this direction, countries such as Japan, China, India, Republic of Korea, Indonesia, and other regional players can play influential role to enhance the soft and hard connectivity of the region. So these are the selected references. And yeah, that is it. Thank you so much for your
Thank you. Thank you, Akanksha-san. Thank you very much for giving us the quite insightful cases and viewpoint that suggest that I think the energy cooperation is a key issue in terms of building a regional community. And Kang-san gave us a good, important viewpoint that is not only European success story, but also important suggestions to other Asian countries. Thank you very much. A good presentation. So the next presenter is Dr. Du Xinxin. His presentation theme is about the Belt and Road Initiative and China Eastern European relations. Okay, so over to you, Du Xinxin. Xinxin-san, please. Floor is now yours.
Thank you very much, Professor Usui, and give my sincere thanks and congratulations to Professor Haba for the wonderful international conference online. And thank you, thank you very much, everyone in the panel. My name is Shixin Du from Aoyama Gakuin University, and the title of my presentation today is the Belt and Road Initiative and China Eastern European Relations, how much the new type of international relations can achieve. And first, I want to give some of my research background, which related to the China-European relations and Belt and Road Initiative, BRI. In 2010, China's GDP became #2 in the world, and 2 years later, Xi Jinping was elected as the top of the party and state. And next year, Xi Jinping visited Russia and made a speech referred new type of international relations with women cooperation and the poor. And the same year, he announced the launch of BRI Silk Road Economic Belt and 21st Century Maritime Silk Road, which you can find in this picture. And next year, the founder of EIB, and in 2016, the Minister of Foreign Affairs of China published a statement of building a new type of international relations featuring women cooperation. So my research focusing is just about the new type of international relations. What is exact the new type of international relations, and what kind of international relations China wants to make? That remains my central puzzles. I have three specific questions, research questions. First, how did new type of international relations come out, and how significant did European countries contribute to it? And secondly, how was new type of international relations performing in the relationships with Central Eastern European countries, the EEC, and how European countries responded to the implemented of such Chinese foreign policy in Europe? And here are my central arguments. First, it indicates that China Central Eastern European relations contributed a lot to the formula of the idea of the new type of international relations. And secondly, the domestic context remains very important for our understanding the regional cooperation in these areas. And last but not at least, EU's expectation and concern about BRI project and Chinese foreign policy could be very important for us to understanding the gap between Eastern Europe and EU countries. And first, I want to give you two main points about China and Europe. The first is the Chinese factor, reforming and opening policy, which lead make the high speed economic growth in China. And for European countries, you can see that European countries, European community innovated to EU. And in 2004, if you see this chart, in 2004, the enlargement of EU, the formal Communist Party satellite states of sub-union became EU members in 2004. And you can see, if you can see this context from 2004, the enlargement of EU, and 2011, China and Poland firstly established a strategic partnership. And next year, the 6+1 conference formula was held in Poland. And after that, Xi Jinping was elected. And then Xi Jinping gave the speech of the new type of international relations with women cooperation. And then BRI came, and then the fruitment of BRI, the initiative of the Serbia-Hungarian Railway came out. So in this context, you can find that China Central European Union, China Central Eastern countries relations contributed a lot to this regional cooperation. And if you see see closely about the about 16+1, or you can see 17+1, you can find that most of the countries, 11 countries are EU member states, and only 5 states are Balkan countries, are not EU member states. So you can find that the enlargement of EU and the rapid speed of Chinese economy give each other a very great opportunity in that sense. And regarding the 16-17+1 summit, you can see from 2012 until 2009 until now, the top leaders of the 16-17+1, they meet each other every year. And one of the main achievements remains the railway contract between Hungary and Serbia, which will be my main case for my study. And let's see this case, Hungarian Serbia Railway. You can find the railway project in this picture from Belgrade, Serbia to Budapest, Hungary. The few points I want to make. First, the founding bank of this project is not AIIB, the international bank, but the Export-Import Bank of China, which could be a very domestic bank of China. And this bank in this year is going to give a lot of money for the project, about $1.4 billion of loans. And how good the project is, officially said, you can see that this is a map between Hungary and Serbia. And if you travel from Budapest to Belgrade, now you cannot go directly on train. You have to go to Novi Sad at first, and then transfer for another train to Belgrade, which make you eventually 8 hours and more. But it is said that the time will be shortened from 8 hours to 3 hours because of the railway construct. But how can we explain the regional cooperation, the project? Let's see the motivations of China. We can. I will pick up 2 domestic actors in China. The first domestic actor is the National Development and Reform Commission of China, which is also known as Fagaiwei in Chinese language. It is directly led by the State Council, which is elected by the National People's Congress, which is very close to the Politburo of the Communist Party of China. And the main actor, the main function of the main responsibility of the National Development and Reform Commission is the National Economic Growth and Plans, not foreign policy. And it did play a very great role in building this project. And the second domestic actor is the China Railway. In 2013, the Ministry of Railway was abolished by the Congress of China, and then the railway became the Chinese railway became a state railway company.
Oh, Shinshi-san, Wi-Fi condition is not good now. Can you hear me?
And,
okay, great.
And bring investments from China and high technology from China. Okay. But there are also some a lot of different perspectives from towards the project. Some scholars said that the loans provided by China is not so fair for Hungary, and some said that the divide and rule perception could not be so good for European countries. But from the perspective of EU does have a lot of expectations. In 2017, China became the largest EU import country, and EU has its own initiatives of infrastructure constructions, which is called TEN, Trans-European Transport Network EU. And actually the TEN and BRI made a cooperation in 2017, and the cooperation can also be found between EIF, European Investment Fund, and SRF, Silk Road Fund. And you can find in Hungary, Hungary has the strategy advocated in Strategia, which means nowadays Eastern strategy, mainly for infrastructures in Hungary, and which can be cooperated with China. But there are also concerns in EU countries. One phenomenon you can find is there are different schedules between Serbia and Hungary in this railway project.
Yes.
The start of the BRI project
Yes.
is anything wrong? The start of the project is from.
You go out.
The start of the BRI project is from.
But it is a very official international conference.
I'm sorry, is something
will
wrong?
not come back again because you said you have a presentation.
Haba-sensei, could you, your mic, could you off, please?
Sorry.
Okay, so, Shishi-san, so please continue.
Sorry for that. There are different schedules between Serbia and Hungary. The start of, you can see that the start of the BRI project is not from Hungary, but from Serbia. Serbia is not an EU member state, but expecting to be a EU member state. It started from 2015 about this project, but in Hungary, it's not started now, even though Congress of Hungary has proven this project. The project is not being constructed now, mainly because of the EU's concerns. You can find the green lines, a green part of this part of delegation of European Union to China. The EU would like to see China applying in its own procedures the same principles of transparency, non-discrimination, and equal treatment, including for foreign companies that are applied in the EU. So that is exactly EU's concerns. And here's my concluding remarks. I would say that it will be an adventure towards a dynamic future of China-European relations. I mainly have three findings in this in my paper. The first finding is that international cooperation between European countries contributed to the idea of new type of international relations and BRI. And the second finding is that the international cooperation in the infrastructure field involved Chinese national actors, and they played a profound role. Hereby, the new type of international relations has been driven by domestic policy context and characters, and it is conceived that institutions or norms in this cooperation are still going on, and it is unclear where to go. And last but not at least, there is a gap between EU states and non-EU states in the infrastructure project, and EU has both expectations and concerns about these Chinese factors in Europe. The concerns might be motivation to push the mutual relations to positive or diminish it, which is not so clear. This is my selected reference, and I will end my presentation to show you this picture. The EU and China are strategic trading partners. You can see this picture. If EU and China do the regional cooperation very well, it will be 25 trillion in the world trade share. It will be the largest one in the world, and it's better for those two actors to cooperate. And thank you very much. Arigatou gozaimashita. And I am looking forward to any suggestions and questions after that. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Du Cixin. Thank you for giving us a quite insightful practice and how to say the connectivity practice between China and Eastern European countries are quite an important thing in terms of political science, not only political science but also socio-economic studies, I think. So now I'm just think about the last but not least. The presentation, we can expect presentation of Peter Joy Hudson, but I think he just canceled. I think there's no Joy-san now.
Sorry,
okay.
he invited me, and his computer is a big trouble. So that's why it's impossible to continue to stay inside of the internet. I'm really sorry.
Okay, so now floor is open, I think. So I would like to ask all listeners to please give us any comment and question, not only by using Q&A function, but also please let me know your question and answers by using. So they can't use chat, just only Q&A function, I think. So during waiting for any comment and questions, I'd like to ask you some questions. Okay. So now we have several insightful empirical cases, okay, which are norm building of ASEAN about labor migration protection and cross-border cooperation at sub-regional level in Danube and Mekong, and energy cooperation between the big powers such as France and Germany, and connectivity practice of the China and the Eastern European countries for building infrastructure. And if Joy-san gives us his presentation, we have the climate policies of European Union. So my just one question to all of you is this: could you how to assess? Could you give me any comment back? Okay, so how to assess the possibility of the governance beyond the nation state? Okay, governance beyond the nation state. This is an important concept in EU studies. The governance beyond the nations. We need to live under the nation state era, or we are now witnessing important practice beyond our nation state system. This is my one question. So not only in the EU, but also in ASEAN, we now can witness the interesting practice going beyond the nation state in terms of building wider regional governance, I think. So, but of course, still the central government power are so strong. So, but still we now have several insightful empirical cases. So that cases I would suggest us that now we are witnessing the practice, important practice, not only by the nation state, our central government, but also by non-state actors or subnational actors. Okay, so how to consider the possibility of the governance beyond the nation states, not the governance with nation state, governance beyond the nation states. Still, it is not practical or just only dream, or we can expect any possibility of this concept. So any comment back, welcome. So Professor Shuto, Professor Shuto, could
Yes.
you, so over to you, please, first give us any comment, please.
Yes. Thank you very much for the very good comment. Well, let's see, let me say 2 points. One is that, regional governance that has been emerging cannot be perfectly separated from the national governance, but,
Yes.
there can be kind of new progress at the regional level. But the point is that, I mean, when it goes to the kind of regulations and laws, what has the binding force? I mean, who takes the responsibility? In the regional governance, as I said, at the AFML level, they share the norms. And well, the norm may have powerful, may have influential in the end, but the norms turned to the laws or policies, the laws can be implemented in the national borders. So in that sense, laws can have a binding force. If you violate, the laws, then you'll be charged a penalty. But in the norms at the regional level, that already exist and it is being made. But it, as it stands now, cannot have a binding force. So when you talk about the governance, I mean, who takes the final responsibility? Who is accountable for their consensus, I think. But in that sense, look at the case of Singapore. Now we have seen new phenomena. Civil society groups are very active in providing assistance to the migrant workers. So society is changing. I think it's an impact of the moral, norms that has been shared at the regional level. So kind of cleavage between urban areas, highly educated people, and rural areas who do not always share the norms, I think. So there are kind of different levels of the cleavages.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. So insightful answer. So next, Soavapa-san. So could you give us any comment back, please?
Sorry?
So could you give us any your comment about my questions? So the possibility of the beyond governance beyond the nation state, can we expect such kind of practice? So you provided us that the good empirical cases that is the cross-border cooperation. So now can we expect the emerging of practice for governance beyond the nation state, or still we are living in the era of nation states? So any comment back, please? Welcome.
Yes. All right. If you can see from the differences of the EU, SDR, and the Greater Mekong Sub-region, for the EU form, you can see like a civil society and also provincial state can play the big role for the cross-border cooperation. For the EU Danube regional cooperation, civil society also play the first role to contact the local people to link with this cooperation. So civil society and also like a working group of the cooperation also help the local country, local member country for the ordinary people to join cooperation, like for the small medium enterprise and also the local trade between the country, right? But for the GMS, for the Greater Mekong region, it's very difficult for the local or the people along the cross-border, because the central government still control the regulation and also control the institution. And the big problem of the Greater Mekong Sub-region is there is no institution form, like ASEAN also, no regulation or law of the ASEAN, right? Or no the big tight union like EU. So there is a bilateral cooperation between the country along the cross-border. So it's a big problem, because the central state also play the big role on this. That's why the Mekong country like to how to say ask the government to give more opportunity to civil society and also provincial government. Yes.
Thank you very much. So thank you very much. So I am convinced that we need to consider about what Soavapa-san said to us. Okay, thank you very much. So Akansha-san, so you gave us the good European success story. It's a cooperation between France and Germany, and Franco-German cooperation or have provided us the bright future, or still the intergovernmental cooperation between France and Germany are the real reality, or any comment about the possibility of the governance beyond the nation state? So welcome. So please, Akansha-san.
Thank you, Sensei, for the wonderful question. So actually, yeah, about the possibility of the governance beyond the nation state. So I agree with the Shuto Sensei and the Professor Soavapa that yes, there is a role of the civil societies and the institutions, and in some of the cases, like civil societies have played a really great role, like and the not only civil society, maybe in the present time, like the wave of the what to say, the internet, the internet wave also in the like in the next years of the 21st century. But in the end, the role of the government and accountability and law would be the most, maybe would be the acting factors towards this governance. Yeah, so accountability of government and the law would be the maybe the final factor. However, other things can provide the impetus to these things. Yeah, I agree with both of them. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. It's quite insightful. Thank you very much. So, Shinshi-san, so I know that my question is most difficult for you because there's still power politics. We can witness power politics between China and European countries, but still, I believe that we will be able to find any good suggestions in order to think about the future possibility. So any comment back, welcome. So Shinshi-san, please.
Thank you very much, Professor Usui. And thank you very much for a wonderful question. Your question is, how to say, my motivation or my core of my study, because I really want to find any institutions, things, or norm, whether there is an institutional character or a norm, just like a liberal institutional ones in the 16+1 or 16+1. But unfortunately, when I searched all of the processes, I found that the main actors remains the how to say, the national actors, which is both Chinese government and the Eastern European government. And I think it will be innovated in the future. But considering that the 16+1, 11 EU countries, and the others are Balkan countries, which could be not EU countries, could be very full of possibilities, full of varieties. So the things is just like ASEAN, like Professor Shuto and Soavapa-san said, and Akansha-san said, and very variety societies. So I think the further goal is to build such governance beyond the sovereign state system, but gradually to consider all of the possibilities and the varieties of this region.
Thank you very much, Shinshi-san. So now, Joy-san, Joy-san, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, now our PC condition is recovered. So I'm so sorry, no time, but still, could you give us the main point of your presentation so briefly? So I think you will give us the possibility of EU climate policy. So my question is the possibility of the governance beyond the nation state. How can you assess this possibility in terms of EU climate policy making? I think so. World countries now seeing the EU experiences for getting the carbon neutral economy models. So could you give us any comment back or your point of your presentation? Any your talk is welcome. So please.
Yes. See, I mean, European Union has been, in the forefront of, bringing out, coming out with policies on energy and climate change since the 1990s onwards. And in fact, in 2009, first time a combined energy and climate change policy was formulated by the European Union, as part of the Treaty of Lisbon. And since then, the world over, the rest of the country, in fact, if you look, just a couple of months back in Japan itself, Prime Minister Suga himself had come out with a carbon neutral plan for 2050. And in fact, if you look at the Biden, the president-elect, he has already announced that in his plans that by 2050, America also is going to be going for carbon neutral plans. And in fact, the current in the new administration which is coming out, in that he has chosen a first ever climate change sort of ministerial position for John Kerry in the coming administration. So this also shows that climate change related policies are going to be in the forefront in the years to come, and European Union has been the lead, has been taking the lead in that, in fact. So my presentation was rather covering tracking the how these policies had been evolving over the years. So I think I missed it. Sorry about this.
So I'm so sorry I couldn't give you enough time, but sorry, but I'm so relieved that. So thank you.
I sent you my PPT,
Yes, please. Yes, please. So thank you for every presenters. So now our time is 19:35, the 5 minutes past. So I would like to say the warm thanks to all of you. So I would like to ask our listeners, all listeners, please give them a big round of applause. Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you very much. I'm convinced that this session will be a good basis for next research for all of you. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. So thank you very much. Thank you. So see you later. Okay, see you later. Thank you very much. Thank you very much.